Welcome to Conversations on the Coast, the Bay Area's premier author interview program. Absolutely Maybe. That's the name of the book. It's a novel for teens. It's by Lisa Yee. It's an Arthur A. Levine book, which is an imprint of Scholastic. And after all that, Lisa, thanks for coming by again.
Happy to be here.
You know, what you've done is, in a way, you've moved up a notch from your previous titles, which were Millicent Min, Girl Genius, Stanford Wong Flunks Big Time, So Totally Emily Ebers.
But we can say Ebers.
Well, that's what I say.
Well, you know, that's what my editors say, too, but I say Ebers. So.
Arthur and I are on the same side.
Yeah, so it's whatever you want.
And that was a kind of a trilogy in the sense that it approached the same plot from three different perspectives.
Right. It was the same summer from three different kids' points of view.
And now you're gone up.
I've aged.
Don't say that. You've graduated.
I've graduated. I like that. Yeah, I've matured.
To a novel for teens called Absolutely Maybe. And Maybe is the name of the main character, whose really first name is Maybelline, which we'll get into. We'll get into the reason for that.
Okay.
Moving along with you, I'm happy to see, is Arthur A. Levine, who you told me once actually discovered you in a slush pile?
He pulled me out of the slush pile. I mean, before I was writing, I was trying to figure out, okay, if I could have my dream editor, who would it be? And Arthur Levine's the editor of the Harry Potter series. And I thought, I want him to edit my book. So I didn't have an agent or anything. And I sent something into the slush pile. And that's where you go if you don't have an agent or you don't have a relative in the publishing business. And he pulled me out.
There was a day when publishing houses, their offices in old days, they had transoms. And that's what the people used to
over
throw
the transom,
things over the transom. But you're in this slush pile, and Arthur, having nothing better to do, was slushing around in the slush pile. And what happened?
Well, it was probably a slow day for him. He pulled me out of the slush pile, and he contacted me. He said, I love your voice. You know, obviously meant my writing voice, not my speaking voice. And he said, this one isn't right for me, but I'm here to tell you that I promise someday I will be your editor.
Wow.
And I didn't believe him, of course. But he said, if you have anything else, send it on to me. And I said, well, I have this book about a girl who's a genius. And he said, send it to me. And I said, sure, okay. And I told him, I said, well, I know you're really busy, so how about I send you a synopsis in the first 3 chapters? And he said, that would be great.
Mm-hmm.
I sent that to him. He called me up. He said, I love it. Send the rest of the book. And I said, I haven't written it yet. And I thought for sure he was done with me, but he was great. He said, well, that's great. We'll work on it together. And we did. And that ended up being Millicent Min, Girl Genius.
Well, I think Arthur must have realized somehow that something of your history, the fact that you always wanted to be a writer, even though early on you told your mother and father you wanted to be a lawyer.
I used to pretend I was going to be a lawyer. Yeah, all through college I said I was going to be a lawyer, and I always wanted to write. I was too scared to try to write books, so I've written for television. I've had a column in a newspaper. I've written advertising jingles. I did everything but write books, and it wasn't until I was older and burnt out and having my midlife crisis that I thought, I got to do this. I got to give it a try.
You kind of approach that information from a more positive standpoint when you talk to students, where you say, deep in your heart, you always wanted to be a writer, and writing means more things than just books. Writing can mean storyboards. Writing, as far as I'm concerned, this is where you really reach the top. Writing can be writing the Red Lobster menu.
Yes, I am the author of many Red Lobster menus. So, if you hear King Neptune's Feast, that would be me. I came up with thrilling lines like that. I used to write labels for cans of beans for Old El Paso. I mean, one of my biggies when I was in advertising was I came up with the slogan, Pass the Old El Paso.
Ooh,
that was me. So,
I
remember when I came up with that, my creative director said, "This is so great. This is what you're going to be known for." And I thought, uh-oh, is this really what I want to be known for?
Probably not.
Pass the Old El Paso.
Now, so you've done all that kind of writing. You decided at some point to write books.
Mm-hmm.
And what drove you to writing books for younger readers?
I was always drawn to kids' books. Even as an adult, anytime I'd go into a bookstore or a library, I'd always find myself in the kids section.
Mm-hmm.
I guess I never matured. I think I peaked at 10 years old.
Well, that's a happy age, usually.
Yeah.
Why leave it if it works for you?
Well, I remember being 10 and thinking, I know everything there is to know. How could I possibly learn anything else?
Enough about your glorious past. When we return, we're really going to see what Absolutely Maybe is all about.
You're listening to Conversations on the Coast with Jim Foster. Now you can find this program on iTunes, SoundCloud, and all your favorite digital outlets. Follow the show on Twitter at JimFosterCoc and email JimFosterCoc@gmail.com.
Lisa Yee is our guest today. She's written some very, very successful books, prize winners, and all that kind of stuff. She's here to talk, however, about her newest book called Absolutely Maybe. It's a novel for teens, published by Scholastic. And Publishers Weekly, in part, had this to say about the book: moving from middle grade into YA fiction. That's what we were talking about. Yee brings both a flair for comic timing and a sense of pathos. The characters are complex, their friendships are layered, and they sweep readers up in their path. I like the last part of that because I was really fascinated with the characters. So here's how this must have happened. Huh? You sat down and said, now I'm going to write what Publishers Weekly will call YA fiction. Is that how it happened?
No. What had happened was I had actually signed a contract to write another middle grade book that was supposed to be very funny, kind of along the lines of the things I had done in the past. And I started writing, and the story and the characters just took over. When I began, the main character, Maybe, she was 11, but by the time I finished the novel, she had morphed into a 17-year-old. And it had completely changed, and it actually got a lot darker and more complex than any books I had done in the past. And I wasn't even aware that I was writing a teen book until one day my husband said to me, "What's going on? Because you're swearing all the time. And you normally don't swear that much." And I said, "Oh, I'm a teen runaway, but, in a couple of months I'll be a fourth grader," because I have a book about a fourth grader coming out. And that's when I realized, this is going to be a different kind of book for me.
Yeah. So your agent, between your agent and Arthur, they decided this was okay, keep going?
Yeah, what had happened was my agent, Jody Reamer at Writer's House, she said, before you send it to Arthur Levine and Cheryl Klein, my other editor, I'd love to see it. So I sent it to her one night. It was 11 at night, LA time where I live, and she's in New York, and she emailed me. She was still up, and she said, okay, I'm going to bed now, but I will read it tomorrow. So I went to bed, and in the morning when I woke up, there was an email from her. She said, I love it. I couldn't go to sleep, stayed up all night reading it, but I got to tell you, this is not what you signed the contract for. And I thought, oh my God, I'm going to, breach of contract. So she said, you need to tell them what to expect, because this is not what they're expecting, but I think they're going to love it anyway. And so I let Arthur know and Cheryl, my other editor, know. And I said, okay, this is a YA. It's darker. It's edgier. It's still funny, but it's very different. And they read it. They said, we love it. And hey, it's your debut YA novel.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Congratulations. Now, the reason you use the word edgy, and it is edgy, I think, right from the start. Maybe is living with a very interesting mother. She's, among other things, an alcoholic. She's also one of those women who's had lots of husbands. 6, actually. 1 repeated, so you could say 7.
Mm-hmm.
And she runs a charm and beauty pageant school in Kissimmee, Florida.
In Kissimmee, Florida. Her mother, whose name is Chessie, is an ex-beauty queen, and beauty is her life. It's what she knows. And Maybe is this goth girl that, dyes her hair pink or purple or whatever Kool-Aid color she happens to come across that week, because she uses Kool-Aid to dye her hair. And
just a moment. Now, research has been done on this, and you know for sure that you can dye your hair with Kool-Aid?
Oh, yeah. Lots of kids do it. You mix Kool-Aid with conditioner, and you put it in on your head. You wrap your head in saran wrap, and you leave it there for a long time, and it'll soak in. Now, if you've got dark hair like me, you've got to bleach it first.
You got a problem.
Yeah, you got to bleach it. But if you've got light colored hair, give it a shot.
So that's what maybe looks like.
Mm-hmm.
And there comes a time that something happens to her in her own home that really, I think the word would be, freaks her out.
Yeah.
And she says, I'm splitting. Well, that's an old term. I'm leaving.
I'm booking.
I'm booking. I'm going to go west with my friends.
Yeah, what she does is she knows she can't live there any longer, and she runs away. And she's got a friend named Hollywood who's going to be a freshman film student at USC, and she knows he's headed to the West Coast. So she and her best friend Ted hitch a ride with him. And they go to L.A., and for a while they're living in the dorms, but finally they realize they can't do it. Ted gets a job, being an assistant to this really old ancient movie star, but maybe is homeless. And
Miss Latour.
Gloria de Latour.
Gloria de Latour.
That's right. Maybe he's on the street for a while.
You do make the characters complex right from the start in that you give them interesting names.
You know what happened? The Tour de France was going on
when
I was writing. It's like, Tour de la Tour. That's it. Gloria de la Tour,
I'm not even thinking of Gloria de la Tour. I'm thinking of Thomasat Pinich Wong Schneider.
Thomasat Pinchiwan
Pinchiwan
is actually the name of one of my daughter's friends.
You're kidding.
And she would walk around because she just loved his name, and she would be walking around. She's a teenager, and she would be singing his name. And so I thought, okay, can I use that name? And I got his permission and his parents' permission.
There you go.
And that's how
Well, clearly Kissimmee, Florida is not big enough for a maybe. And she's on her way. And there are going to be a lot of things happening to her like just stay tuned.
You're listening to Conversations on the Coast with Jim Foster. Now you can find this program on iTunes, SoundCloud, and all your favorite digital outlets. Follow the show on Twitter at JimFosterCoc and email JimFosterCoc@gmail.com.
This is Jim Foster. It is Conversations on the Coast. Absolutely maybe. A novel for teens, not tweens. A novel for tweens by Lisa Yee. And that's what we're talking about. And one of the things that Publishers Weekly says is that the characters in this book are very complex. And I was making a joke of it in terms of the long names. But this is true. And I think that does show growth in your writing. And there's much to admire in them and much to, not like.
Yeah. They're not necessarily likable. And a lot of people have commented about maybe saying, why didn't she do this or why didn't she do that? And I don't write books that are fairy tale-like.
Mm-hmm.
Even the ending, it's sort of left open a bit. It's not wrapped up neatly.
No, it's
because
not.
What she does is she is running away from home, and she's trying to find the father that doesn't even know she exists, the only man that her mother never married.
Mm.
And she's on this search, but really what she's looking for is herself.
When you're on tour these days, one of the things that happens to authors, it seems to me, is that they spend a lot of time in what I would call high-end schools, the schools in better neighborhoods. And on this particular tour in San Francisco, you went to a school that was not in one of our better neighborhoods. How did that come about?
It was wonderful. The San Francisco Public Library and Books Inc., the bookstore, set it up. Mm-hmm. And I was able to go into this school and talk with these kids that were voracious readers. I mean, it was wonderful. They had all read the book, and I sat with them as they had lunch, and we just bantered and talked, and they asked questions. They asked wonderful, tough questions, and it was thrilling for me as an author to be able to meet these kids.
And the reason you were able to do that was the joint operation among the bookstore, the school, the library, and a program of the library called Friends for the San Francisco Public Library.
Mm-hmm.
They came up with the money, And this is a kind of thing that should go on and on and on and happen more often. And if you out there want it to happen more often, all you have to do is go to www.friendssfpl.org. Friendssfpl.org.
And I think it's important to add that that each kid there got their own hardcover copy.
Yes.
Of Absolutely Maybe.
Yes.
And I was able to meet the kids, autograph it for them. I was told later for a lot of the kids, maybe it's their first book that they own, so I thought that was wonderful.
One of the amazing things that happens in this book is that Maybe finally gets a job after walking away from a really, weird babysitting job for triplets. Rather wild triplets, I might say. And then she winds up doing something very interesting. She's working on a taco truck.
I love tacos, and I love taco trucks. It was just an excuse to be able to eat a lot of tacos and write it off on my taxes.
There we go.
She has...
your accountant sees that.
Yeah. Okay, the IRS isn't listening, are they?
No,
they wouldn't.
They never listen to this kind of program.
Okay. Yeah, because she had her purse stolen, all her ID stolen, and she ends up working on this taco truck, and she's befriended by this girl named Jess who teaches her how to make the best tacos in LA. And it's actually through cooking that it helps her find herself, that she realizes she can do something worthwhile.
Well, she gets so good at making tacos that she even passes the incredible test of acceptance by Tessa's uncle.
That's right. Right. He doesn't trust her to cook. He says, this is a family business. You're not even Mexican.
Yeah.
You got to cook for me and prove to me that you're worthy. And she does.
She does.
Yes.
Now, the other one who succeeds out in La La Land is the character called Hollywood.
Yeah.
And he does get into USC, and he does get into a competition to do a movie.
He does a documentary film. I went to USC, and I knew a lot of film students, and it is very, very competitive there. And they do have these student competitions. And Hollywood, coming from Kissimmee, Florida, his real name is Daniel Jones, but he's nicknamed Hollywood. It's his turn to shine, and he does.
He does, and he does beautifully. But then there's even something disjointed about that. And this book is very, very real. He really wanted, in a way, to do a movie that would please Maybe, and instead of pleasing her, it sends her into an angry fit, and she gets arrested.
Yeah, she does get arrested, but don't we all? No. What happens is he's filming this documentary about her. She doesn't know it, but he uses the camera as his filter because actually he's got this huge crush. He's very much in love with her. She's not aware of this. And so he's always following her around to the point where she doesn't even notice him. And he thinks that by making this movie, it's his love letter to her because he can't tell her how he feels about her.
Yeah, and everybody loves it except Maybe.
She doesn't watch it till the end.
Everybody's going to love reading Absolutely Maybe, a novel for teens by Lisa Yee. This is Conversations on the Coast, and I'm Jim Foster.
Now you can find this program on iTunes, SoundCloud, and all your favorite digital outlets. Follow the show on Twitter at Jim Foster COC and email jimfostercoc@gmail.com.